Welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. In this episode, episode 232, we talk to John from 2A Talkin' Tactical. I think it's a pretty good conversation. Hopefully you guys like it as well, if I can spit it out. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode, episode 232, An Evening with 2A Talkin' Tactical. All right, welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. As usual, it's your grateful host, Steve, and I'm glad to have you guys here. In fact, we have more than just me here. It's always awesome when we get a new fresh face on the show. And today we have John from what's it, 2A Talkin' Tactical, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
That's all good, man. It's all good. Thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. We were talking a little bit before we started recording that I was telling you I feel like we really need to be networking as a 2A community because we are a family. And sometimes we have family issues, but it's more important to be united and work together. We all have the same common goal, right?
Most definitely. Yeah.
We believe our rights are given by God, and we got to be sharing them.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I learned when I first got into this podcasting thing is it's really interesting to find out. I mean, people are out there with the same mindset or maybe a little difference in certain subjects and stuff like that. But it's really neat to talk to other people and find out if you're on the same page or maybe at least in the same book, maybe just on different pages. And it's helped me learn to look at things in a different light and think outside the box, so to speak.
Awesome. So how long have you been podcasting? What made you start, and when did you start?
So, give you a little bit of background. So, when I was 14, my granddad was real big in the local fire department, and so when I was able to, at the age of 14, which was in 1984, I joined the local volunteer fire department. There's not that many volunteer fire departments now; they're all paid. But anyway, I joined that, and I already knew a lot of the guys that I went to school with were already in or got in after I did. But my dad was in law enforcement at the sheriff's office here, and that, along with having a calling, if you will, in the community, probably kept me out of trouble more than I like to admit. But it was really eye-opening to see how much of a difference, a department of 50 people can make a big difference. So I really liked working in the field of helping other people. So that migrated into when I was able to actually work legally. I went to work for Forsyth County Fire Department and EMS and communications, answering 911 calls. And unfortunately, in 2003, I injured my back. I ruptured a disc, and I was out for a little bit. Where I was working at then, I run out of FMLA for about a week. Needless to say, they did not hold my position. But the one thing about Forsyth County here in North Carolina is the year before, they adopted a plan that if you left any position in the county, but you under good reason, but if you come back within a year, you were able to keep your seniority. So I had 7 years already under my belt. So I lost that position in September of 2003, but the sheriff's office hired me in December of 2003. So I went to work in communications, the same thing. On this side of it, I was doing law enforcement stuff. So I done that until I re-injured my back in 2009, and they ended up having to do a spinal fusion. And wow. I was able to work about a year after that, but it just got so bad. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that, 911 operators, telecommunicators, whatever you choose to call them, most of the time you're sitting in a chair for 12 hours a day. You're dealing with high stress levels. It's a roller coaster. You can be sitting there for 3 hours not doing anything, and then it hit the fan. So when I had to go out of work, I did have to go out on medical. So when I went for my hearing, the judge was asking me, what all I was doing since I had been out of work, because I had an 18-month waiting period to get to my hearing. And I said, well, I'm afraid to do anything. And he said, no, you got to find something to do. Even on medical disability, you can make a certain amount every year. But I got into photography, and I done that for a little bit. Went through a couple of dating relationships. I ended up, divorcing from my wife because of stuff like that. She just didn't understand. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But so after the photography thing kind of wore off, I thought, I want to do something different. So I say all that to say this, working in communications, I've always been a shy person. I've been kind of leery about, talking on microphones and stuff like that, as weird as it may sound. But I actually enjoyed talking to people, talking to different people. You learn, like I said a minute ago, you learn how other people deal with certain situations, and you find a lot of people that have the same interest as you do. So when I got into, I've always been a gun advocate, a firearms advocate, whatever you want to call it. I've always been around them. So, when I start digging around on different platforms, I find that there's a lot of people doing what you and I do right now. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that was real interesting. So it was kind of like another way of networking. And I enjoy it. I mean, as you well know, it's, it takes some money to get going with the equipment and whatnot. But, I've kind of started out from nothing, and, I've got what I got, and it works. But right. The most of the thing that I enjoy is just talking to other like-minded people, getting different ideas, things that I probably hadn't even thought about. It's just really interesting to me. And, like you were saying a few minutes ago, the networking, I think now more than ever, the possibility of us needing someone else or other people is higher today than it has been, probably in the last 10 years. So it is nice to know other people, or, whatever the case may be, because, hell, you don't ever know where you might end up.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because the gun community, the family, if you will, just over the last 4 years has changed so much. We've had so many new gun owners come into the community, from different political perspectives, from different gender perspective, whatever you want to call it. People that we wouldn't expect coming into the firearms community, realizing that they are their immediate responder in a situation, that the law enforcement and EMS, they're the secondary response to any situation. So once they see that, hey, I'm kind of in charge of my own safety in some regards, I think it's opened the eyes of a lot of people. And that's why I feel it's so important for us to reach out and expand our network, because each of us can communicate to different people in different ways. I've worked gun retail. I've ran ranges. I own a construction business, so I know what it's like to communicate with people. And everybody that you meet in any given day, they're all different. And somebody's voice might react or reach one of those new firearms owners in a different way than others. And it's important for all of us to be out there now. And I spend too much time on YouTube. Like I'll watch Grantham and I'll watch these other high speed guys, right? But they're almost like a novelty. It's almost like they're overlooking the new novice shooter for the big audience. And for me, that's what I want to be. I want to be the voice that helps these new shooters, these new gun owners. That's why I got into firearms instruction, honestly, was to reach out to women and children, because I knew, and this was 2016, I knew that they were going to be the future of the community. The gun guys are always going to be gun guys, always. But
it's funny you mentioned that. I went to a local range. It's been I don't know, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and there was a gentleman there that had just purchased the infamous scary rifle that everybody calls it today. He had just purchased one, and it happened to be one that was less than a foot and a half. And we were talking, and I asked him. I said, "Well, what do you think about this? This thing that they're trying to do?" And he was shell shocked. And I'm not. One of the things. Let me back up a minute. One of the things that I told myself that I was not going to do when I started doing this was make anything political, but I couldn't help.
It's hard not to in this universe.
It is. It is. One of the things that I couldn't help but to learn, and this came from this individual. He was a registered Democrat, and he had voted for Obama, and he had also voted for Biden. So when we got to talking about this rule that was on everybody's doorstep, he knew nothing about it, nothing. And so I was explaining to him. He did not believe me, Steve. He legitimately did not believe me. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to try to make you believe me. Do your own research. And that's what I tell people. I don't care who you vote for, but know who you're voting for.
Yeah.
And I pretty much told him that. And so we had different lanes, but he was having to wait for a lane. I was too. But we were sitting there, and he looked at me and he said, "Damn, I did not know this." And I said, well, and he openly told me that, who he voted for. And that's what I told him. I said, I don't tell anybody how to vote. I never have. I will not. But know who you're voting for. Everybody has well, I'm going to vote for this person because of this. And I guess that's fine. I mean, you're not going to make everybody happy, but
right.
He had just dumped $1,100 in this rifle. I mean, it was a nice setup. And I said, well, if they do what they say they're going to do, you're going to be a convicted felon, whether you know it or not. And he's like, what do I do? I said, that's not for me to say. Everybody's got their different opinion on it. But it made me think that a lot of people just not even on the R side. I mean, they're gun owners. I mean, look what COVID did. A friend of mine owns a gun shop just right up the road. And when COVID was going on, I would go up there and help him. I worked at a pawn shop for about a year, and it was very eye-opening at the demographic people that were coming in buying firearms. And they had no clue that this was about to happen. And I even ran into one gentleman. He was wanting to buy one right in that gray period. I was like, I can't sell you this rifle as it is. All I will say is he ended up buying the rifle, but he had no clue. So, and I was like, he said, thank you. I mean, he's like, I didn't know. So it's like, you may be able to tell somebody or say something to somebody and they don't believe you for whatever reason, but then they may hear it from someone else and it's presented a different way, and they're like, oh, wow. Okay. So yeah. Like you said, reaching out to other people and trying to educate people on different things, like different bills. I mean, I know, all the bills that are on the table today that people have no clue about, that at the end of the day, if they go through, it's greatly going to impact what they can and can't do, or what they can and can't have.
Yeah, super, super scary. And it blows my mind. Again, it's hard not to be political when you're in this atmosphere. It blows my mind how much apathy there is even in the gun community, right? I don't know if it's people are just wore out, or they just don't want to hear it, or they don't know at all. Like, it just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's shocking sometimes.
Yeah, and it's just like you're saying with those folks that didn't have a clue what was trying to get pushed through as far as the latest gun control act. That stuff happens all the time. And if you don't pay attention to your state or city ordinances, I mean, things are happening on every level, and we just need to be more involved. I know it's just one more thing that we got to do, right? Everybody's got a busy schedule, but man, you let the mice run the house, then it's going to get overrun by mice. Sooner or later,
Yeah,
we got to set some traps out.
and well, and see, that's the thing. And I even said this to my girlfriend the other day. I'm like, it bumfuzzles me as to what's going on, down south,
Yeah,
and with all these unknown people that are affiliated with terrorist organizations or whatever the case may be that have, I don't want to even say potentially, they've
yeah,
gotten through under the shadow of darkness, that when they get ready to do something. And it's just like you and I both done a video on it the other day about the sheriff up in Ohio. He's like, we've got
yeah,
more red flags today than we did before 9/11. Now, if that's not an eye opener to people, what is going to be?
yeah,
And it's like, why now are they trying so hard to attack the only thing? And I know some people may roll their eyes, but the only thing that we're going to be able to defend ourselves from. I mean, these people don't care. Hell, they're over here illegally. Do you think they're going to, care about a law? No.
yeah. They're going to
So
acquire whatever they
why,
need.
why is, yeah, I mean, why is our government trying so hard, especially right now, to do away with, the firearms that, that we're going to have to rely on, if something does happen? I just, that's what I don't understand. What don't we know? What else don't we know?
Yeah, and as you were saying that, made me wonder. Maybe that's where some of the perceived apathy comes from. Maybe a lot of folks in the firearms community don't want to believe that the government would even act in a way that would be dangerous to its own citizens. But it's pretty obvious that they're either turning a blind eye or they're allowing a lot of the stuff to happen as far as like the borders are concerned. Um, you might have listened to one of my shows where I do have friends that are federal agents,
Mm-hmm.
and one that's an ICE agent, and he's told me straight up, he's like, we know that we have a certain number of individuals on a list that are from a Middle Eastern country. We know they watched them come to the border. Once they got to the border, they lost them. Which I don't know how you
Yeah.
can follow them all that way and then lose them once they hit our own soil. But that's not even hyperbole. I mean, that's reality, and we've seen it through lots of the videos coming out lately from the border that we're getting a lot of dangerous international people that could easily do us harm with the right mindset that I believe a lot of them do have. It's super
Oh,
scary.
yeah. And well, it's like I've got a friend of mine that works for ATF. He's an enforcement agent. And, it is, and he and I have had different conversations, as you can imagine. And I'm here to tell you, and anybody that ever watches this podcast, you shouldn't be mad at the ATF agents. They're
Right.
doing just like everybody. If you have a job, you've got a boss, you got somebody to answer to. But I will tell you that he and I have had conversations, and we know each other to the point that
Right.
we can rib each other pretty hard. But I called him one day and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, dude, don't start on me. He said, I'm not, he said, I ain't with this. And I was like, I know. I said, I'm just giving you a hard time. He said, I know, brother. He said, it's comical, but it's not. But it's like, he said, John, he said, you would be shocked, even having worked in law enforcement, you would be shocked. And I was like, I might be. But one of the eye openers back when I was at the sheriff's office, one of the eye openers for me was everybody's familiar with a particular company that makes cigarettes here in North Carolina. They have a lot of warehouses here in my city, and our narcotics units was doing an investigation one night, and one of them called me and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna send you a picture. Do what you do." And I said, "Okay." God's honest truth. So he emailed me a picture, and I looked at the picture and I was like, "The hell!" It was a Hispanic guy standing in a big roll up doorway to a warehouse standing there holding an AK-47.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay. So I called him and I said, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? He's like, yeah. I said, where are you? And he said, I'm literally 3 blocks from the sheriff's office.
Wow.
And I was like, holy crap. And at the end of the day, this dude was tied to the Sinaloa drug cartel. And I'm like, here we are in a well-populated city in North Carolina that has drug cartel members standing in the garage doorway of a very well-known corporation that they had rented out to these people. And I'm like, and I'm sure they didn't know, but I'm like, they're literally in our back door, Steve. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
and I've always carried a gun here or there, but after that, I mean, being, working at the sheriff's office and doing what I've done and all that, I'm like, I mean, I got to where I carried every day from that point, and that was in, I think that was in 2007 or 2008.
Wow. And think
And
how
I mean,
much has changed just since then. Like, that
oh
was a few
yeah,
years ago.
yeah. I mean, and it's like, I don't know if you kept up with what was going on with the. I think she's a senator down in Arizona, Carrie Lake, with that phone recording that she done.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy said, he said, they're operating in all 50 states,
Yeah.
and that is no lie. But going back, I was talking to my friend that works for ATF, and he said, John, he said, it's right here in your own city, buddy. He said, just be careful.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize. It's like it's in their own town, in their own city.
Yeah. Evil's really, especially recently, right? Evil's really good at camouflaging what it does. And even, I'm small town, southeastern Idaho, and, there's a lot of farming. So what brings in a lot of international workers, I guess. I don't know how else to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Brings in a lot of Hispanics from down south, and they do their best to keep illegals from working, but it still happens. It's always going to happen.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
In a very small community, about 15 minutes from me, is a very big presence of drug cartel members. Very heavy presence, and they just blend in with the farming community. If people only knew like how crazy it is, like you're saying, I mean, just in your backyard, it's everywhere, and it is so frustrating and sad. I mean, the America that we grew up in is not what my kids have, and my grandkids, who knows? Hopefully, they're still in America by then. It's just really sad to see what we had as kids growing up in is not here anymore.
Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. The days of, going to bed and leaving your door open or even unlocked, obviously
Right.
that's gone. Leaving your cars unlocked, that's gone. I don't know. I don't remember if it was you that I think we had a text or something going, but I don't know if you watch or look at John Lott's website on crime stats. I mean, I could spend all day looking at that stuff. It's mind blowing. And
Yeah, it's a well loved resource for the podcast. I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's like, and I can relate to a lot of stuff that he says, because having worked in the field that I've worked in before and having access to some of the stuff that I've had access to and seen and heard, and it's not, I can promise you it's not hearsay, but it's just like, and people say, well, you're paranoid. Hell, I go to the grocery store and I run into somebody, and I mean, they might see an outline of, something, and it's like, dude, you live right up the road. I'm like, okay. And, yeah, I mean, you just, yeah, it's sad because you don't know, especially after hearing what we heard the other day. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen in the next 12 hours,
Yeah.
let alone the next day.
It's funny. I was talking to my father-in-law, used to be sheriff a few years back, and I brought up actually that letter and the news conference from Sheriff Jones, and he hadn't heard anything about it. And he's usually pretty dialed into that kind of stuff. He's a firearms collector. He loves the community, but he had no idea that anything like that had happened. And so I kind of shared with him just a real brief introduction of what the press conference was about. And hopefully he goes and listens to it and knows, like, man, Steve's not just blowing smoke up my butt, but like how dangerous the situation really is. And if any of our listeners or watchers, I guess in this case, don't know what we're talking about, I'm sure they've heard it from either one of our podcasts by now. But go back and revisit what that sheriff was talking about, because it is scary and it's imminent. Like, it could happen at any time, which again goes to our
he
federal
put out a
government.
lot
What
of
the hell are they doing?
information that I had to even go back and watch it 2 or 3 times because I know I missed some stuff because I was like so focused on what he was saying. I actually missed some stuff. So I actually watched it like 3 or 4 times.
It's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
and the other thing that blows my mind is why haven't other sheriffs that are, at least in his group, why haven't they spoken up and said anything? And maybe they haven't. It's just being pushed out. I don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully, I didn't work under the sheriff that we have now. I would love to. He's changed our agency 180 degrees for the better, but that's a different story. But anyway, I know him. I've talked to him, obviously, and stuff like that. But I think I told you, I emailed his secretary. I was like, Sheriff Jones put this out. I'd like for Sheriff Kimbrough to, did he even go? I don't know. I mean, I don't even know that he went. But I'm just trying to find out because that is my question. I'm like, to my knowledge, Sheriff Jones is the only one that's come out about it. And not saying he was wrong, but you would think, what'd he say, 3,300 sheriffs in the United States? And he's only one that has felt the need to let his citizens know what's going on or, what might be around the corner. I find that disturbing in a way.
And kudos to him too. I mean, he looks like, have you looked at his social media feeds or anything?
I did a little bit actually, and back to that letter. So I had actually contacted them through their Facebook page, and then I emailed those senators' offices. Mm-hmm. Well, the lady from Miss Carruthers' office, she actually emailed it to me and called me and left me a message that she was emailing it to me. But the next day, I actually got a call from Sheriff Jones' secretary. And she said, "Hey, you're more than welcome to it. Give me your email address. I'll shoot it to you." And I said, "Well, thank you." I said, "Actually, Miss Carruthers' office sent it to me." And she's like, "Oh, okay, great. If there's anything we can help you with, if you have any questions." I don't even live in Ohio.
Yeah.
But she was like, "Anything we can help you with," because I kind of told her what I was wanting to do. She said, "Anything we can help you with, let us know. We're glad to help." So,
and maybe that's something that we could have our listeners do as well. It's like, hey, reach out to your sheriff's office and maybe ask them some comments on that. I've been really interested about pulling my sheriff aside and sitting him down. I know him well enough, but he may not make any kind of public statement about it. He may not even make any statements off the record. I don't know. He might be too worried about, touching hot rocks or something. I don't know. But it'd be interesting to hear what your local sheriff, meaning our listeners, what their local sheriff would have a comment on this. It would be really intriguing.
Yeah,
because
I'm interested, and I'm one of those that I'll push it a little bit. I don't push to the point that I've become annoying, but he's not. He hadn't heard the last of me. I actually have his number, but I'm not going there yet. I'm trying to do it the right way, but yeah, it would be interesting. If not even mine, but yours or it'd just be interesting to know.
And maybe I'll send my sheriff a text because I still have I'm pretty sure I still have his personal. I've known him since before he was sheriff. So maybe I should shoot him a message just to see if he'd be willing to speak a little bit. But it's really interesting to me, like saying 3,300 sheriffs or 30, whatever it is, and only to have one raise his voice about the concern for his citizens, the people that elected him. And it's a broad threat. Like you think about Ohio, I don't know what the county is like that he's over, but I imagine it's fairly sparse. You know, I don't know. I've never been to Ohio, so I guess I
Yeah, I
can't
think
really
he said
speak
he
to what
had a
it's like.
population of 12,000 or something like that.
Yeah, so it's not huge. I mean, it's
Yeah.
probably a lot of area, but not a lot of citizens. So for him to come forward and say, "Hey, we're going to have classes for these citizens. We want our citizens to be trained in trauma and emergency and carry a gun for hell's sakes." You know, I mean, that's pretty bold for a sheriff to stand up. And like I said, I was going to bring up his social media feed. He looks like a guy that has a lot of courage, anyways. He looks like a guy that's not scared to speak his mind and say it how it is, which I appreciate. I'd rather be
Oh
offended
yeah.
by somebody telling the truth than be offended by somebody lying to me, because then I can't trust somebody after that point, you know?
Yeah, and that's why I like. That's what one of the things I like about the sheriff we have now. He's not. He is very transparent. You know,
That's good.
we just had an incident at our jail that he ended up having to charge 3 of his own employees.
Oh, man.
Uh, but yeah, he's very transparent. I love the man. I love him to death. He's good. So yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if, like you said, if anybody even that watches or listens here that, reach out to your sheriff and say, hey, or go watch the video. And that
Mhm.
way, you kind of, they've heard what we have heard and seen. And then that way you can take it to your local sheriff and say, hey, did you go to this conference or have you heard anything about it? Yeah. Well, what's your take on it or something? I mean, don't just take it from us.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's,
It's,
please don't trust me on everything. I'm just some bald guy that sits in front of a microphone. In fact, I got this total ADD moment, sorry, on LinkedIn. For some reason, I've been getting these anti-gun feeds a lot on LinkedIn.
oh,
And
wow.
finally, I made a comment about something. Oh, it was the firearms death for children. Somebody posted, "Oh, guns kill more children than anything else," and I was like, "No, they don't, because they don't." Like, and instead of me saying that because I said so, I said, "Look up the CDC, look up the FBI statistics. They don't support that argument." I would rather have people do their own research than trust me. So it's
Oh, yeah.
so frustrating.
Yeah, because I'll be the first one to tell you. Not that I'm intentionally lying, but I may not word it in a way that
Right.
they understand. So go read it for yourself, or whatever the case may be, and draw your own conclusion on what you hear and read. Um,
And the problem is
yeah,
society is so focused on shorts or reels, like that's their attention span. So for them to actually dig in and do some research, because I've even
yeah,
researched stuff that I thought I was right on, and then dig in. We're like, man, I guess I need to change my argument because I was wrong.
yeah, yeah.
It,
That's another thing I've learned since I've been doing YouTube Shorts is a lot of people um, will take your 15 or 30 seconds of a YouTube short and um, go haywire with it
yeah, it's
instead
all
of
right
doing it
though.
wrong.
It's good to get the publicity. It's okay. I mean, I'm surprised on TikTok that I haven't got any negative stuff off TikTok yet. But I have a woodworking TikTok that I posted a video on that got a lot of views, but so much hate. Like, I couldn't believe the amount of negative comments just because I showed a different way to cut a piece of crown molding. I got blown up. But then,
Right.
on the gun side, on the podcast side, I really haven't encountered anything like that yet, which I guess is pleasant. But at first, those
Yeah.
negative comments hurt. But after a while, I'm like, I don't even know these people. It doesn't freaking matter what they think about me.
Well, and I full disclosure, I actually saw a comment on my YouTube about this flag right here behind me. Uh, it was very negative and rude and ugly. It was vulgar. So that's the only reason I deleted it, or I would have left it. But I'm
Yeah.
like, but I could tell that they watched the majority of the video, but the only thing out of the video was this, blue line flag here. So they were, um,
Freaking out
I
about
don't
it.
know. Yeah. So, but whatever.
Man, if you're not pissing somebody off, though, then you're not doing it right. You got to make
Well,
somebody mad.
yeah, I learned that a long time ago. You can't make everybody, no matter how hard. I hate making people mad, and I don't want
Yeah.
anybody ever mad at me. But yeah, I found out a long time ago you can't please everybody. So
Yeah,
I
it's
try to
impossible.
please the majority if I can. But
I see you have a USCCA shirt on. We'll just kind of jump on topic on different things.
Oh yeah. So yeah. Oh boy.
You a USCCA member, I'm guessing?
I am a elite member.
Nice.
I guess you heard about the fiasco with Alan Coley up in Virginia. Oh, you have not heard about that?
No.
Oh wow. Okay. So real short. So Alan Coley, he, from what I have learned, and I'm trying to be very respectful of the guy. He's been through a lot, but he doesn't have the best social skills, and I'll leave it at that. But he was living out of his vehicle. He was working for Uber Eats. So he had gone to, I think, like a mall in Loudoun County, Virginia, to pick up an order to deliver it. And this YouTube prankster, who was well known.
I do remember this.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead, Carrie. Keep going the story, yeah.
So he's got a guy with him. Then he's got the guy filming, and he's doing some kind of a prank with a phone, and it was some kind of a Google Voice or something, but he kept putting it in Mr. Coley's face, just harassing the hell out of him. Bro, I'm not here to judge. Mr. Coley is wearing a hoodie, and he's got the bag of food in one hand. He reaches in his hoodie pocket with the right hand, pulls out a gun, and pops the dude.
Right.
Self-defense. Well, of course, everybody, the police and all that come, they ended up arresting him. So where the problem came in is that Mr. Coley is a member of USCCA. For whatever reason, he chose. Now this has come out later, but the issue was that it was reported that number one, USCCA dropped him. For whatever reason that they dropped him, and therefore they did not defend him. So me being an affiliate for USCCA, I don't want to put anything out there that's not right. If I'm an affiliate for somebody, I feel like it's my responsibility to tell you or whoever it may be, kind of what's going on. Is this right? Is this wrong? What is it? So USCCA, because of this, and there were some other people on YouTube that, and I will not mention the names, but they went out against USCCA, saying that USCCA dropped him. He had to get a public defender, blah, 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 blah. USCCA lost a ton of members. So I reached out and I said, look, I'm an affiliate member. I know you probably can't comment on this because at that time it was still going on. And the gentleman told me, he said, all I can tell you right now is that Mr. Coley did not notify us immediately after the shooting. We knew nothing about it. Once we found out about it, then we we stepped in. I was like, okay. So I think it was last week or last week and a half. And if Mr. Coley wrote it, I will say that it's not very well written, but he wrote a letter to Tim Smith, who's the CEO of USCCA. And he basically said, I'm a good member in good stand, or I'm a member in good standing. USCCA never dropped me. It was my choice to choose a public defender. And I get it, having worked in law enforcement. I mean, public defenders, everybody's got a job to do.
Right.
But, the stigma that comes with a public defender. And people are like, why wouldn't you, I don't believe this. Why wouldn't you use this, these benefits that, you clearly have? Well, for whatever reasons, apparently he knew this attorney and wanted him to defend him. Well, at the end of the day, the attorney did get him cleared of the shooting. It was ruled self-defense, so he was acquitted of that. However, he was still charged with discharging a firearm in a public building. So after all of the hoopla and whatnot, the judge finally said, time served, and released him. So there's been a lot of back and forth about USCCA. Now, because of the way the letter was written, if it did in fact come from Mr. Coley, I see where they're coming from, because it is not a very well written letter. It does bring some questions, but if everything's legit, a lot of people made a lot of money off of it. And it's like I even said to one individual on YouTube, I said, if the last 10 years should have taught us anything, it should have taught us stop jumping to conclusions before you know the facts.
Yeah.
Let it play out. Let it play out in court. Whatever. Let it play out. Let all the facts come out. Then there'll be plenty of time for you to bash somebody if you're going to bash them. But it's just like with the kid that shot the guy during the riots. I mean, there was a lot of speculation. They were, he was receiving death threats and whatnot. And then when he goes to court and he's acquitted, it's like, and then he goes back and sues CNN, which he should have. That's why I say I know the facts before you you go off on a tangent. But I've been an affiliate with USCCA for probably 2 years now. I almost had to use them once. I did still call them because I thought there was probably going to be a civil suit. It did not result in me discharging my firearm, but I was squeezing the trigger. And when this individual's mom found out about it, but even the law enforcement, the sheriff's office in a neighboring county, the sergeant, I told him, I said, look, I'm retired law enforcement. This is what happened. He confirmed everything, and he told the guy, it's something stupid, Steve. His sister or his girlfriend accused him of hitting her, and she went and told her brothers, and they took off. And they legitimately were going to beat his tail, and he's trying to bang on the door, trying to open the door. And I drew down on him because he had a phone in his hand. But it was dark. It was midnight. And all I could see in the way he was holding it, I thought it was a gun.
Yeah.
I was literally squeezing the trigger. But anyway, he was like, I'm going to sue you. You pointed a gun at me and all this and that. So I did call him. It ended up not panning out because the sheriff told him, the sergeant even told him, he's like, dude, he said he was fully justified. He said the man was totally justified if he'd have pulled the trigger. So we were good a few days after that. And, but I've always had good contact with them. I've never had any issues with them.
Right.
I ordered, as an affiliate, well, with a member, if you become a member with USCCA, you get a unique referral code. So say if you use my referral code, say if you were to sign up right now, I'll get an email it doesn't say who, but it says, somebody used your referral code. I get a $200 credit. Well, I can go in their store and buy anything up to $200. So I bought some stuff anyway. I bought a shirt or a zipped up, like a windbreaker, and the zipper's messed up on it, but I called him. But while he sent me a new windbreaker and everything, didn't have to send that one back. But while he's doing all that, well, what's your personal preference? What do you carry every day? It was just like real personable. Yeah. But I have no qualms with them. I love them.
Yeah, me neither. In fact, I'm an instructor certified through the
okay.
The NRA. Obviously, everybody's an instructor with the NRA, but I don't use any of the NRA stuff. Their curriculum is awful, honestly. The USCCA curriculum is great. I use it. I used to use it all the time. I haven't taught a class for a little while now, but I used to teach almost twice a month. Can still carry classes, and I love the program. I love the company. I love what they stand for. I think they're solid guys. I shouldn't say they're not all dudes, but it's a solid company, and what they're doing, I think, is a necessary evil that we have to carry now. As far as
no doubt. And not to go off on another road, but one of the things when all this was coming out, there was how do I say this? A group of attorneys in Arizona um, they're basically doing the same thing where they're putting out that about bail. Well, one of the things, and I forget how the video went, but it led me to dig into the fact that unless you live, and don't quote me on this, but it's either 3 or 4 states in the United States. There are only 3 or 4 states that will allow an attorney to post bail. North Carolina, an attorney cannot post bail. In like 46 other states, the attorneys cannot post bail. Well, this group is attorneys, or they'll hire an attorney in your state to post your bail, or that's what they're advertising. They can't do
But
it.
they can't.
It's against the law. So I've called them out on that, and they still haven't fixed it on the website. I have the emails. No joke. I mean, they're pushing this group, and I went with them. I went with them. Screw USCCA. I went with them. I'm like, well, hope you're not involved in a self-defense situation and you're locked up, because unless you live in one of these 4 states, you're going to spend some time there.
Yeah, and there's quite a few companies. In fact, I can't remember the name of the company. They're out of Texas. But I was supposed to become like whatever, the guy that goes around and sells the insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, that didn't work out. I mean, they paid me to take the classes online and everything, but it didn't ever pan out, which I am totally okay with, because I think USCCA is a better choice anyways.
Yeah, I've not had any issues with
amazing.
It. Yeah. So yeah, and like you said, unfortunately, a lot of people. This was in one of their videos, and I'm sure you got it. Can you afford not to have USCCA? I mean, you think about it, especially nowadays, where you're more apt to be involved in a self-defense situation now than you were 5 years ago, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can tell you that's a lot of money up front just to possibly even get out of jail or even prevent from going to jail. But I get it. I mean, with the they call it Bidenomics. I mean, there's people out there that can't afford, $40 a month or $50 a month. I get it. I mean, you don't mean you have to get the high one, get the lower one. You still get the same benefits, so to speak. But better to have something than not nothing.
Right, that 100%. And court costs. I think the Rittenhouse court costs were over $1 million.
Yes.
And I don't have $1 million in the bank, and I can't pay an attorney $1 million, even if I borrowed it from somebody. There's just no way. So it's insurance is, everybody can complain about insurance, like you're saying. Those monthly fees kind of suck, but when you need it, you'll be grateful that you're, coughing up that few dollars.
And I mean, before I had that incident happen, I was kind of like, well, am I going to keep it? Am I not going to keep it? But I mean, that happened in a matter of like 30 seconds, and I'm like, it's paid. I mean, you don't ever know. And I'll be the first one to admit, I've been one of those say, oh, that ain't going to happen to me. I've had some very unfortunate things happen to me that I never thought would happen to me or to my family. And it happened. And it's nobody's immune. Nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. The world we live in, like we were talking earlier, that it's not the same as it used to be. And when it comes to education, just like the sheriff saying the same things, get some classes in, learn how to use a firearm, learn how to do medical stuff. Medical is a huge thing. I wish more and more people took a stop to bleed or something.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need that is probably more likely to need than a firearm is some kind of medical training. And I try to push it all the time on the podcast side. We talk about classes a lot, or at least we used to. We haven't hit it as hard as this last few months as we have before. But the journey, like a concealed weapons class, that is like of the beginning. You shouldn't just stop at a CCW class and say, yeah, I know everything, because you absolutely do not. And I wish more people understood the importance of training. And then, like we were just talking about insurance, some kind of supplemental safeguard in some way to cover you and your family in case a situation happens. Because if you're in the business of making holes, you probably should be in the business of learning how to plug them up and then how to cover your family in case a huge financial hit comes in afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah. And and you can probably attest to this more so, being an instructor, but I'll never forget that when North Carolina first adopted, is the word I'll use, concealed carry, which was I think it was 1995. I went and got mine. It was 2 days. But one of the things that I'll never forget is, I forget exactly how the instructor worded it, but it was basically, when you hold that permit and something happens, you are held to a higher standard than somebody that has not been through the class and or holds that permit. Do you still want to proceed with the class? Of course, all of us did. But about a year ago, I had a situation, and I actually, and I'll talk about this in my last video about situational awareness, and I'll just go over it real quick. But, we had a bunch of break-ins into gun stores in my area back in the latter part of 2021 near Christmas. And 3 individuals walked into the pawn shop that I was working at, and I just immediately, the hair on my neck stood up. Something wasn't right. Anyway, we were located at the end of a strip mall. Well, there's a beauty salon or a supply store next to us. And the only thing that's the only thing that's dividing us is just a plaster wall. And that's where our gun cabinet was and where these individuals were. So that was one of the things that I was already thinking in my head, this is about to go down. And my main concern, one, was the young employee that was helping them. He wasn't even old enough to carry a firearm. He was helping them. But I'm like, what if my bullet either misses or it's an over penetration issue and it goes through that wall? Am I going to hit somebody over there? And all this stuff's going through my head. And, and that was one of the things that popped back up in my head. It's like, if this goes down, I'm going to be held to a higher standard, because they're going to know, I don't know if many people know this or not, but if an officer runs your tag on your vehicle and it's already tied to your driver's license, they're going to know whether you're a concealed carry permit holder or not. So all that to say, they're going to know that I'm a concealed carry, and are they going to hold me to a higher standard? Should I have been aware or cognizant of the fact that, my bullet could go through that wall and hit somebody, as opposed to somebody had I not taken the class? And I don't always think that that's right. I think everybody should be held on the same standards, but I get it, but I also don't get it. But when you go into the teaching side of it, is that one of the things that you taught or that you at least mentioned?
Yeah, 100%. I tell them, it's like, the minute you get that permit back from the sheriff's office, there's no more flipping people off in traffic. There's no more road rage. You have to be a different person. You first of all, just to be a good steward of the Second Amendment, you should be a different person anyways. The Second Amendment already has a big target on its back with, finding any reason to talk about, these gun owners are crazy. Yeah. So there's the first thing, right? But carrying a gun is a huge commitment, just like the sheriff was telling you in your class. It's a big commitment, and you need to be taking that a lot more serious than just everyday citizens. Yeah. Because you will be judged by a different standard, unfortunately. If you're carrying a gun and you have to use it, they're going to go back to your training, who your trainer was, how long it's been since your last class. They're going to dive into that kind of stuff. So you might as well represent it well.
Well, I'm glad you kind of mentioned that, because I know I think it was about a year or so ago in North Carolina, they were talking about doing a mandatory remedial concealed carry class to catch, I guess, number one, to catch people up on, because since I took mine, we adopted the stand your ground law, and some of the laws in self-defense have changed. So it's like, I was fortunate enough, having worked in law enforcement, I was aware of all the changes and stuff, but hell, somebody that might have been in my class in 1995, that if they still hold their permit, are they aware? Because all you got to do is just, do the renewal. It's not like there's a remedial class. What's your take on that?
Well, I actually had an interesting conversation with a state legislator a few years ago when we started talking about because we have a permitless carry option here as well in the state of Idaho. And Ron Nate was the legislator that brought that up. And so I was talking to him, and I said, well, don't you think there needs to be some kind of a training, some kind of level of competency, so we don't have, because that was everybody's concern. It's just going to be the wild, wild west. We're going to have everybody with guns shooting each other, a typical way left argument. And he said, Steve, you can't regulate a right. If it's a right, it's for everybody. And so the way I feel about like remedial training, I think it should be the gun owner's responsibility. As a responsible gun owner, I should want more training. I don't think it should be mandated, but I think and maybe the state could strongly encourage it or something. But I think as somebody that
Right.
I should want or desire more education and be more proficient in a tool that I'm going to be using potentially to save a life, a family member, or God forbid, take a life of somebody. I mean, I definitely don't want to shoot anybody. I do not want to have to use my gun and kill somebody, but I will if I have to. If that, maybe that sounds gruesome, I don't know.
No, I mean,
but because that's such a huge responsibility, taking a life is a big deal. I should want the training to know that if I have to use it in a way like that, that it'll be a prudent shot placement, that it'll be in a timely manner, and maybe this sounds weird too, as humane as possible, right?
I get it. I mean,
it's a big deal.
Yeah. And I mean, I can see, somebody saying, however it played out, I could see somebody saying maybe to themselves is, did I do everything right? Or, where did I mess up? Or, I should have, trained more. And I've actually heard people say that here recently is like, it's been 6 months or a year since they've just gone out and target practiced it.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was off. But then you turn right around and they're a concealed carry holder, valid. And it was like, okay, well, if you don't practice, then I don't know. I see both sides of it.
Yeah. And it's been a class that I have a buddy that's a pretty, well, he's getting to be a bigger deal in the training community, in the 2A training community. We've talked a lot about the class after the concealed weapons class, because so many people just take our concealed weapons. So we have two different levels of permit in Idaho. So there's the basic, which is no class, and then the enhanced, which is an 8-hour class, but it has greater reciprocity. So most people are jumping to that enhanced class. It's an 8-hour class, but it gets you, in more states. But a lot of folks, I would say, probably 80% of those classes never take another class after that. And so what Adam and I have been talking about is maybe coming up with a way to have the next step class after your concealed weapons class, because we don't talk about drawing from the holster. In the state of Idaho, you only have to shoot 99 rounds. And it doesn't mean those 99 rounds have to be in a specific spot on the target. You just have to press that trigger 99 times, which is silly to me.
Wow.
But the next class there really should be a class designed for how to properly carry, whether it be concealed or open carry, which I'm not a huge fan of. How to properly deploy that firearm, how to get, clear a garment to get the gun out of the holster, properly reholstering a gun, because a lot of injuries happen when you reholster. Ammunition choice, which I talk about in my class when I teach the class. We talk about ammunition, but it's super glassed over. Like because most people get really bored when we talk about ammo, but we should be talking more about why we choose hollow points. What kind of hollow points is best for your gun, because not all hollow points work in every gun. Mm-hmm. Every gun's going to be different. It could be the same brand, but ammunition might work in one Glock 43, but not in another. It's super finicky. And these people that carry a gun for their life, to defend their life, they should know and understand these concepts beyond just a standard concealed class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, but then you go back to, what your friend said, is, I guess it's not up to you to make sure everybody is,
right.
Does the training that they need to do. But at the same time, if, I would, as a responsible gun owner, if you came to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about throwing this class together, like a refresher class, whatever you want to call it," I'd be right on board. Because
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, you can never train too much.
No.
Um,
And I
like a
guess
friend
the
of
big,
mine, he
sorry.
runs a self defense course, and he does medical and all this other stuff. And I asked him not too long ago. I said, Ryan, have you ever done? Because I mean, they get down and dirty and muddy. I said, have you ever done a class on, uh, like, say, active shooter situation or something like that, wearing a plate, with your students wearing a plate carrier? He goes, no, I hadn't. I'm like, well, I'm going to put my head on the chopping block. So I threw mine on and tried to do, you notice I said try to do with wearing a plate carrier what I could do not wearing a plate carrier. Steve, it wore my ass out.
I believe you.
And I mean, just like that.
My plate carrier weighs too much, and so I think
Right.
about rolling
And that's
around,
what,
and
yeah.
that'd be tough. And so Adam, it's Spartan mode. I don't know if you're familiar with any kind of knife skills. Spartan mode. I'll throw a plug out for Adam. He does martial blade concepts, which is I don't know
Okay.
if you know who Michael Janich is. That's something that Michael Janich came up with. Anyway, Adam's a very accomplished instructor. He does some stuff for the government. He understands a lot.
Okay.
And so with this knife class, we've been doing stuff every Monday night. It's more than just a knife class. Like, we've been working on retention and other skills that you don't get anywhere else. Like, sometimes we'll do some role-playing stuff where we're blindfolded and we're spun in a circle and we have people around us and we don't know who's going to attack us. We have to figure it out as soon as we pull that blindfold off, which is kind of fun. It seems kind of silly, but it causes us to think in a different way, because we'd never get to choose our gunfight. If we ever have to use a gun, it's never our choice.
Right.
We have to just react. And if we can bring down that reaction time, even a fraction of a second, that could be life or death. It's a lot of fun.
And I think a lot of times that's where fear comes in. Is people say the unknown is what's scary, and that's the thing. If you haven't trained a certain way, then you automatically have a fear as like, how am I going to react? Where I guess with what you're doing with training, in that aspect, putting a blindfold on, spinning around, and then taking the blindfold off, figuring out who, I guess you get over that initial fear, and you can concentrate more on what you need to do and who you need to do it to, as opposed to being scared about the.
And there's always indicators of an attack, where whether bad guys want to fight it or not, there's always some kind of an indicator that they're going to do something. And so if we can learn to see those indicators quicker, that gives us a little bit of a time benefit as well. It's a ton of fun. And if you can find a place to do that, whether like we do it at a local jiu-jitsu place, but there's it's so fun. And that's what I think as instructors that we need to be working on, is making classes fun, because that's what's going to keep the retention of our students later on when we come up with the next level class.
Yeah.
It's sad that you have to think about classes being entertaining, but they really do need to be entertaining at some level.
At some level.
Not like watching a movie, but you got to engage the students in a way they can learn.
Right. And that's kind of what I got into in that last video I did about situational awareness. Just be, you don't have to be on edge, but, know what's going on around you. Look at people, see what they're wearing. Are they wearing a heavy coat when it's 75 degrees outside, or, different things. I mean, and I think that's, and I even said it in the video, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, and no offense to anyone, but I think the majority of people today are in the white level of situational awareness. They have no clue. Like, they're just oblivious, to what's going on, not only in the world, but what's going on around them. I mean, hell, look at how many people run a stop sign or a stoplight and, I didn't see it, so.
Well, and they're like anymore, they're in double white. They're driving to work, which they've driven that route, for the last 10 years while they're on their cell phone or putting on makeup. So they're like in double white, not paying attention to what's really going on around them. It's super scary. Like, it blows my mind.
Where's my eyeliner?
Blows my mind.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, And I used to, when I was at the sheriff's office, even when I worked at fire and EMS, I mean, you see some stuff, and it was like all you can do is shake your head, and
Yeah.
you're thinking to yourself, how did these people survive to this age? I mean, it's sad, but it's true. And there's going to be people that say, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about," and they may be one of them. I don't know. It's just people just need to. They just need to understand what's going on around them.
Wake up.
And
They need
yeah,
to
wake up.
wake up.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Wake up. Yeah, and I think sometimes people don't want to acknowledge the fact of what's going on. It's
Yeah.
denial.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's probably just as easy to lose yourself on Netflix than to really prepare for, or think about the bad thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to think about the worst case scenario, but we all should be at least mindful that there is a worst case scenario.
Oh yeah.
It's scary,
And
but
I
it's reality.
and I want to apologize for the dog. He's probably barking at a cat if you hear
Well,
him.
I don't know if you could hear my dogs earlier. They were going crazy. I'm downstairs in the basement, and so we have hardwood floors, so it makes it even worse when they're upstairs horsing around.
No, actually, I didn't hear him, but I can
good.
hear mine through my
Because I
earphones.
didn't notice your dog. I just noticed my dog being crazy.
Oh, okay. Well, good. So how long have you been an instructor?
How long have I been instructor? So I got my NRA certs in 2016. Never really used them. And then in 2000, no, would I say 2016? Yeah, that's probably about right. No, it would probably been 2010 with the NRA, and then 2016, there was a local indoor range that opened up. I was one of the first employees there, and then I got some more credentials there. I was, doing some other teaching the range safety officers. Became the chief range safety officer there. Started working my way into teaching other classes to other students, not just employees. And then there was a big range that opened up in Boise. I moved over there, helped get that going. That's when I really got into the USCCA stuff. So from I guess it was really from 2014 is probably when I really first dove into becoming an instructor. And I love teaching. I love everything about teaching. I get passionate about the Second Amendment. I get passionate about guns. When I was working the gun floor, I could tell you anything about any of the guns, out there. Now it's a little bit harder. I've been outside of that universe for a little while, and I miss it dearly. I miss running that range every day. It may come back. I don't know. It just wasn't the right time. Couldn't find a place to live in Boise. Ended up coming back here to East Idaho, and God has ways of making things work, and sometimes it's His time and not ours.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I looked into, and I'm sure you're going to laugh, but into opening up an indoor shooting range here in the town that I'm in, because the two closest one, there's one in Greensboro, which is like 30 minutes from here, and then there's another one north of here, about 20 minutes. And we're in a town that there's a lot of firearms, and I thought, because I'm good friends with actually one of our senators actually owns the one north of here.
Oh, right.
So I'm good friends with the people that manage it, and I was like, wow, y'all doing pretty good. I mean, they've got some real nice state of the art equipment. And but then when I started digging into it, the first thing that popped in my head was like, okay, well, I know I got to have a filtration system.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and that's where my dream stopped.
Yeah, you start looking into what it costs to filter that air, because it gets filtered 3 times before it comes back into the range, and this actually gets a lot of range owners because I've written a lot of SOPs for ranges. So what they don't get is like the disposal of those contaminated filters. Like you don't just throw those in the garbage can; they're contaminated with lead. And I think that actually gets a lot of range owners, even after they've started the range, that then they realize, holy crap, I'm a producer of hazardous materials now. What do I do next? And it is expensive. It is a lot of money.
Yeah, I actually reached out to the lady that manages this one up here, and I said, can I ask you a question? She's like, yeah. I said, don't think, I said, if it pans out, I will be your competition. But I said, will you be honest with me and let me know how much it cost on the filtration side? And she said, I'll do you better than that. I'll make you copies of the invoice. I was like, okay, cool. So she did. And I just looked at her and I'm like, are you serious? And she said, yeah. And she said, and look what it cost every year.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it was a tad over $1 million.
Yeah, it is extremely painful.
I
And
was like, holy moly.
yeah, and your target carriers. So Action Target is probably the most prevalent in the United States as far as target carriers. And they build a great product. The ranges I've worked at, and almost every range I've visited, honestly, has Action Target components. But when you think about the track, the target carriers, the booths, I mean, all that stuff, it adds up really, really fast. The stop, the bullet trap in the back, all that stuff, it adds up so quick. And people don't realize, like, I running a range, being number 2 guy there, I'd always have customers complain on how expensive it was to come shoot. Why does it cost so much? And now you understand why. Between and Idaho, it gets cold, so in the wintertime we have to heat all that air. You have that massive column of air going down range, and you think of the volume that has to be filtered and then reheated as it comes back in. It is a lot of money. It really is. The shooting portion of a range really loses money. It's really bringing people into the shop that
because I went into it as thinking that, well, how expensive can chopped up rubber tires be? Hello.
And then that has to be harvested every 9 months or so. You got to get that. You got to get it harvested out of there. So it's just a lot of money.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'll let this dream go.
Yeah, don't let it go, because there's a reason why those companies are still in business. So
I get it, but
it's just a lot of money to come up with. A lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm 53. I'll be 54 next month. So yeah, I don't think it'll ever pan out.
You never know. I actually I've come up with some pretty interesting ideas that I would love to make happen that might help curb some of those costs, but I just have to have the right vendors in the right places at the right time. Yeah. But it's a dream I've had too. And in fact, Action Target, with the salesman from Action Target, I'm still friends with that guy that I've met over the last 2 ranges. He actually reached out to me. It's been a little bit ago. He says, why don't you open a range in Pocatello, Idaho? I'm like, okay, let me just pull $6 million out of my back pocket and we'll do it. But he's adamant. He's like, you need to build a range. I'm like, that's a lot of it hurts.
Yeah. And I mean, even 3 figures is a lot of money to dump into something that you don't know is going to pan out. But I guess do you do studies or anything like on that? I mean, how do you know that?
The NSSF is a huge support when it comes to building a range. And so if you ever get to the point where, I'd like to investigate this a little bit more, reach out to the NSSF, because between SHOT Show, they have a huge portion dedicated to, and SHOT Show University, the first few days of SHOT Show are dedicated to learning. They have the way upstairs. Have you ever been to SHOT Show?
I've never been. So I actually just signed up because I didn't realize what it took to go to SHOT Show. So I just actually signed up and I did get approved literally like 3 weeks ago.
I tried to do it as the podcast and they would not let me do it.
I will forward you the email that the lady sent to me.
Okay, that'd be good, because I was trying to
go. Yes, you can do it.
I knew I could, but they would not help me. So I'm glad.
Really?
It was. And anyway, I'll let that one go because it made me so mad. Anyway, the first few days at SHOT Show University, they have specific classes dedicated to new ranges, like people think about new ranges, and it's good, solid information. They are a huge support for range owners. That if you're willing to go that route, if you're wanting to, they will help you. It's awesome.
I'll look into that. That's just a lot. And I'll go ahead and let the cat out of a bag a little bit. So I was thinking of coming up with this, I don't want to call it waterproof, but weatherproof box that would be thin enough, small enough to go in like a go bag or a bug out bag, but it would have foam cut out to put some batteries, one of the charging blocks, like you can get a couple of cables. Um, so I reached out to a company that actually does that, and I got a bid back. I had to send them the measurements and everything that I wanted. And it don't sound so bad, but this kind of goes back to why I asked you what I asked you about the startup cost. So I've got to order 50 of these boxes at a little over $20 a box. So that's a little over $1,000 just to get the box. So I emailed him back and I said, I'm not sure how well this would go over. So it's hard for me to dump $1,000 into, 50 boxes that I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell or not. Let me do some thinking, and I'm trying to come up with some different ideas. But so I'd reached out to this guy about doing that. So that's why I was like, is it going to pay off? Like, because I don't have an extra $1,000 laying around that I can just dump in to these boxes, not knowing if they're going to sell or not. But I did want to go to SHOT Show and kind of see what was out there and maybe get some other ideas. I want to do something.
Is it? Are they rotomolded, by the way?
Are they what? I'm sorry.
Are they plastic boxes? What?
Yep.
So are they rotomolded? Are they injection molded? Do you know? Did you figure out?
I think. Well, he mentioned there was a startup cost for, or not a startup cost, a tooling cost.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at it, I think it's injected.
Okay.
I think.
So not to toot my own horn, but I'm also partners in a rotomolding company, or future rotomolding company. We're still pretty small, but we do thermoforming and some other stuff. So, there might some options there too. So.
Okay. All right. So I want to do something. I've always wanted to invent something or come up with something that other people can use, and the people like in what do you call them, preppers, or just people that want to be ready. This is something I even looked in, like having it come ready to go. Already have a battery, a power bank in it, and have some either Energizer batteries or rechargeable batteries. I think it was 8 AA, 8 AAA, 2 CR123s, and 2 9-volt. And then it's got like the little cutout for the charging cords, and then the battery bank. So I was like, that'd be neat to, just be able to throw in a go bag, and then you've got at least batteries to rotate out or whatnot.
No, I think it's a great idea, man. Don't sit on it too long, because, you just told thousands of people about it.
Well, yeah, I know, but I do have the blueprints on it. But I know that don't mean anything, but yeah, I want to do something like that. I think it's, but
and honestly, SHOT Show is another good place because you get to see all sorts of different vendors and stuff there too. You go upstairs above where all the cool guys are, and there's vendors and suppliers, and you get to make good connections that way too. That could help you a lot.
Okay. Yeah. I'll send you that email. I've got it up. I'll just forward it to you. That way
that'd be awesome.
But I guess that, when it comes out that, we can sign up, I'm going to see what the cost is going to be, but I would love to go.
It's usually, I don't know if it went up more this year. Usually it's not too bad. It's like $80 or something to get in there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Really what the cost is your housing and food and travel. Yeah. That's, where you're going to see the biggest cost. But if you make the right friends at the right time, sometimes they'll take you out to lunch or whatever. And there's always parties. There's always people there, that want to do things. I'm not a partier, so I'm not going to go to those crazy middle of the night parties. That's not really my scene. But I really enjoy making connections and visiting with people. That's what I love about SHOT Show. I've been a few times. It is a ton of fun. I got to go, working with those other ranges.
Okay.
That's how I got in there. And that's what I even told the NSSF. Was like, look, I've been to SHOT Show many times. Why can't I go as a media personality? And they just did not work out. It was really frustrating. So I'm glad you got some response back.
That's interesting. Yeah. I got a response back within like maybe an hour or so.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I was surprised.
The only email I got back was I don't remember the gentleman's name, but it just referred me right back to the same page on their website that didn't get me anywhere in the first place. So I was like super frustrated. It is what it is.
That,
So-
yeah, because she told me how to fill it out, and that's what
that's
I
good to
did.
know.
And yeah,
Yeah, because
I'll
I'm
send
not
it to you.
missing next. I am absolutely going next year. I'm not missing it. I'm not missing it again. So it is
Yeah.
a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Plus,
So,
as you can see, I love patches. So last time I went, I took my son with me, and I probably came home with like, I don't know, 100 patches. It's such a dumb thing. I mean, look at that wall back there. It's just it's ridiculous. But my wife thinks it's a stupid hobby, but I absolutely love patches.
Now, one of the deputies I used to work with, he used to collect all law enforcement patches. I mean, he had fire because he was in the fire department as well.
Yeah.
But he had I don't want to say he had all of them, but he had a very large collection of law enforcement patches.
Yeah, I think it's cool, and I kind of want to get into collecting challenge coins, but I only have like 3 or 4. That's a little bit more expensive than patches.
So I've got one from when I worked there, and I've just found out the other day that they come out with a new one. So I'm getting ready to get my hands on some. So I'll send you one.
Oh, that'd be rad. I would definitely not say no.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, and
Well,
it goes back to the beginning of the podcast. It's like networking. You just don't ever know who you'll run into and what they bring to the table.
We all need each other.
Whatnot. Yeah, because and that's just I mean, I enjoy that part of it. I just I just hope, not in a bad way, but I hope we don't ever need each other. But I'm more worried today than I was a year ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel you there. It's something just doesn't feel right. I don't know any other way to put it. Something just doesn't feel right, and I don't know. We just got to prepare for the worst.
Well, yeah, and that was another question I had. If they know, we're all dealing with this fentanyl crisis, and they know where it's coming from. It's like, why are they not nipping that in the bud? I mean, it's and I heard this years ago. The government's involved, and I mean, you could have all these conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying that is a conspiracy theory by no means, but it's like if they know, I mean, this is killing more people than guns are.
Yeah.
And they're dumping all this money into trying to ban a certain weapon or a certain magazine, and it's like, the hell with this drug that's coming over and killing all these people. I mean, I don't understand the mindset. I don't, and I don't understand how even people on that side of the aisle doesn't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
It's like, what do they know that we don't know?
Yeah, it is super frustrating. And at least from my perspective, I don't know if it's reality. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle, they're almost both, okay with it at some point. I know there's some really good people that are fighting to keep America free, but it seems like there's less and less on the Republican side that are ambitious about keeping rights where they belong. And I don't know if it's a money thing. I don't know if it's a pride thing. I'm not quite sure how to explain it, but it seems like there's just less and less people that we elect to be our representatives that actually are doing their job to their fullest extent. It seems like they're just worried about their pocketbook and what people think. And like I say, that might just be my observation. I don't know.
No, I mean, I've actually I'm not going to lie to you, I've actually kind of thought the same way, on different days of the week. I'm like, what are y'all doing?
Yeah.
And it's like other days I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's almost like a new norm.
Yeah. It's disappointing is what it really is, because they're supposed to be the adults in the room making decisions, and they act like a bunch of petulant children half the time. It's just fighting over things that are not important. Let's worry about the big things first, not what bridge gets to be funded for the next 20 years. Like, it's just stupid.
Yeah. It's like, how do these people get elected in these positions? I mean, they're doing stuff that you and I could do, or you and I would be doing things that need to be done. It's like, it's so simple what needs to be addressed, but it's not.
Yeah. All sorts of hoops. And I don't know, like, I've been asked to run for office before, and I actually thought about it a lot, but I I don't know. I don't know if I'm just too scared to do it. I don't, at the time I was asked, I had way too many things on my plate. I didn't need another thing to worry about. And I don't know. I don't know if I could do it. Maybe I could. I'd probably piss more people off than what it would actually be worth, because I would expect people to be doing what they are elected to do. And
Well, I mean, look at Marcus Luttrell. I mean, who would have ever thought he'd be holding a seat in the Senate?
yeah,
You know, I mean, former Navy SEAL. You know, I mean, and there he is. I mean, he don't take no junk off of him.
yeah.
So,
I wouldn't want to piss him off anyways.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's we're in a world of hurt right now. I'm afraid. I think it's more worse than what we realize.
Yeah, yep. That's why I think, again, why as a family, a 2A family, we need to help and support each other more than ever. It is expedient that we stop the infighting and backbiting and just work together, because Congress isn't doing it, so we might as well be working together anyways.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, it's not to rehash it, but it's like, you know, the bulk ammo ban that they're trying to do, anything over 1,000 rounds. I'm like, why? I just, you know, going back, I don't understand why now. You know,
Yeah,
I don't know. That's why I say I think they know more than we do. But it's like, you know, with everything going on, why would you want to take this stuff away from the people that clearly are going to be able to protect not only themselves and their family, but hell, the people that don't care, or maybe don't care is not the word I should use, but they're oblivious
care about
to it.
something else.
Right? Their focus is on something else. I mean, you know, bless her heart, my neighbor next door. I mean, she just she has no clue, and I say that respectfully. But you know, if something happened, I mean, I'd be the first one to say, "Come on," you know, her and her husband. I mean, they're older, but it's like, but if you go target practicing or something like that, and she sees me carrying my stuff out, you don't need that. Go back home.
Well,
Yeah.
we've probably kept people entertained long enough. John, why don't you tell people where they can find you? Tell them about your podcast a little bit, maybe your socials.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm on pretty much all the social media platforms, even some that I knew nothing about up until about a month ago, like Gab. But I'm on Rumble. Of course, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, everything under YouTube. Everything is under 2A Talk, and then the letter N, Tactical. 2A Talk and Tactical. The website is the same, 2atalkandtactical.com. I'm still working on that website, but I am making some progress. So that's where like I said, I'm on Instagram, I'm on X, formerly known as Twitter. So yeah, just about all of them I'm on. I try to keep them all updated, but as you well know, that's a hard undertaking. I think sometimes
it's a nightmare.
I bite off more than I can chew, but I try. So yeah, so that's where you can find me. I'm the purpose of the channel is kind of like Steve's, is to make sure people that are informed, that want to be informed. The last thing I want to do is put out anything wrong, but so I always try to double check my information. And if I am wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong, and if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. But yeah, that's where you can find me at, again, 2A Talking Tactical.
Awesome.
And I appreciate you doing this. I know it was, kind of working out through the weeds, getting it nailed down. So, and I'll be the first. I'll tell you, this is the first time I've ever done like a joint podcast. So
it's fun. It's fun to communicate with somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. I've always wondered how to do it, but so that's kind of why I also left it up to you, because we'd probably been doing a podcast with the International Space Station at this point.
It's all good, man. I was going to ask you, how long have you been doing podcasting? I think we talked about it, but
Oh, yeah. So, you did ask me that earlier, and I guess I inadvertently avoided the question. So, I started doing it, I guess it was probably, I really dug into it September of 22, October of 22. I just started out doing the audio part, and I signed up on a platform, and they push everything out to all the podcast platforms. So, and again, there you can find me also 2A Talking Tactical. So I did that, and then I thought, well, let me dive into YouTube and see how that goes. And it's as you well know, you have to work for it.
Yeah.
So, and that's why it's not about the number, but I do want to put out good information, good content, because the last thing, and I've always been this way, is I don't want to know something and not tell somebody, or put it out there, because if something happens, I don't want to be the one that says, well, I knew that, I just didn't tell anybody. So kind of like your deal, I want people to be informed.
Awesome. Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and hanging out. It's always a good time. We'll definitely do it again.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
and
jump
if
on
y'all
your
have
side.
some ideas you want to talk about, shoot me or Steve a message. Let us know,
please.
and we'll throw something together.
Yeah, absolutely. I love feedback. So even if it's negative, I'll still at least read it. I might complain about it, but I'll still
quick,
read it.
Very quick. That was, I think it was one of my first 3 videos, and I left it up. And I knew I was doing it, but I didn't do anything to correct it until somebody called me out on it. He was like, dude, he's like, you too damn much. He said, it's almost painful to watch. And I replied back and I said, yeah, I knew I was doing it, but I didn't realize I was doing it that much. So yeah, it's constructive criticism helps.
And eventually you'll get over it the more you do it. Like I started the pod. Well, it wasn't just me. Originally, there's 2 other hosts on the podcast. So we've been doing it since 2018. Since then, they've gone, their own way, which is fine. And it doesn't help that I actually was a top 40 DJ in my younger days. So
I knew you had some kind of background.
Yeah, and it is a little different when you've actually been in front of a microphone. Plus, teaching has helped me a ton. Getting up there in front of people that it's on a mic, you don't see who you're talking to, but when you're in front of 30, 40 people, that's a different animal. Yeah. And so that definitely helps get the ums and things out of the way when you actually have to share something that you're teaching to other people. It is a ton of fun. It's intimidating for some people. I actually love getting in front of people and talking. There's a side of me, a secret side of me, that I would love to be able to do, like TED Talks or motivational speaker type stuff. I would absolutely love to do that, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. I don't have the stories like some of these people do.
I think the biggest thing in that is knowing how to communicate. And it's funny you mentioned that, because when I first started at Fire and EMS in communications, one of my biggest fears was talking on the radio. Even though I couldn't see who I was talking to, I'd been in the fire department at that point for 9 years. So I knew people that essentially I was talking to on a radio. And it made me nervous. And it didn't take long before I got over it. But then I was able to say, well, I'm the one that tells you where to go, how to get there, and how fast to get there. And they were like, yeah, well, you got one on me there. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I loved it. So yeah, I get where you're coming from on that. I like doing it. So.
Awesome. Well, awesome. So, any last words before we close out this podcast?
No, again, thank you very much. I greatly enjoyed this. I hope I didn't ramble too much. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I hope your viewers and listeners got something out of it, if nothing more than entertainment.
I hope so. Like it or not, they're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, thank you. Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks again. And as usual, you can find us on our website. It's easier to just lead them to my website, or the website, I guess, as far as socials. I don't have to tell. It's all linked to the website. So find all of our social links on the website. You can reach out by email, stevez@rangemindedpodcast.com, or any of the platforms that you're going to be watching or listening to this. You can comment and like and share and all that jive. Anyway, guys, we appreciate you so much hanging out and listening and watching. It does mean a lot to me. This is something I basically do for free because I enjoy it. I love the Second Amendment, and I want to share that love with everybody else. So as usual, be safe and take somebody shooting. All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Steve.